Africa is the youngest continent besides Europe. Besides Europe, Africa is the second youngest continent.
But if Africa is the motherland, right, why are of the 640 food crops found in Africa right now, 600 originated in the Americas? America is the real motherland.
We have discovered that Africa is not the motherland of all civilizations. Life began in ancient South America.
Twin, you think a nigga want to go to Africa, bro? What they be saying, the motherland? No, sir. That is not the motherland. I'm on the motherland right now.
The continent of Africa is not the motherland. America is. America's way older than the continent of Africa. Stop listening to these colonizers who told you Africa is the motherland and everybody's African. Come on now, stop. I mean, literally, guys, the access to fresh water here is unbelievable. On the continent of Africa, they only have 9% of the world's fresh water. This is why most of them are malnutrition. You see, Africa is not the motherland. America is. So, my hypothesis is, if America was the motherland, it would have to have what? Most of the world's fresh water, as you can see right here. America has the largest share of the world's total fresh water resources. Now let's look at our cousin from across the water.
Africa don't even fit a motherland type of place. It doesn't fit the description. It was never called the land of milk and honey. You see, when you hear that, that means that wherever that place is the motherland.
America is the motherland. Now, I know y'all gonna come for me because we've been taught that Africa is the motherland, but America is the motherland. So I'm gonna tell you 3 simple reasons why America is the motherland.
The Americas is truly the old world and truly the motherland. The motherland because genetically speaking, socially speaking, economically speaking, geography speaking, the Americas. Africa, most Africa is deserted. Is half of Africa, I'll say 50% of Africa is all desert. The Americas is truly the motherland on a spiritual level. It is. North America is Israel. North America is Egypt.
Please tell me why there is no gopher wood in modern day Africa, if that is the motherland. There was also an article in the Tampa Tribune in Florida, also admitting that the Garden of Eden is actually in Florida. A secret that the pale folks have kept from us for a long time. In fact, the 4 rivers that's spoken of in the book of Genesis are actually found right here in Florida, not modern day Africa. You have to stop regurgitating the nonsense, false history that these folks gave us. All that nonsense, modern day Africa is the motherland, it came from these people. The people that stole our identity, that gave us so-called African American history and just history all over the world. This is an official document stating that the lost 10 tribes of Israel are where? In the United States.
Like, you can't say Mother United States of America, Mother Africa. Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, Africa is a continent that best shows you what a mother is. I mean, this is the continent with the most resources.
Now, there's some debate going around. Is America the motherland or is Africa the motherland? Where did life start? So this is what I'm saying. I believe we were neighboring tribes. I also believe that Africa is the motherland. And I also believe that America is the promised land. I feel that it is most likely possible that at one point in time, perhaps at the beginning of time, Africa and America would have been together before they broke apart. I believe the science behind the Eve gene, which essentially says that we all came from one woman in Africa who had a magical superpower gene that could create any human being that looks any type of way, any hair texture, any skin color. And I believe that this is where we started.
I'm glad you're watching, family. So there's a growing argument online that's forcing people to rethink something that we know we are taught to be the unquestionable truth. An argument that says Africa is not the motherland, folks. That America is not the new world, but the old world, folks. Not the destination, but the very beginning. So according to this view, history has been flipped. Civilization didn't start in Africa and spread outward. Instead, it started in the Americas and was later erased, it was renamed and repackaged. Water, food, DNA, development, all are being used, to challenge the idea that Africa is the cradle of humanity. Others say this claim isn't just wrong, it's very dangerous. That it ignores fossils, genetics, and thousands of years of documented African civilizations. That belief is being mistaken for evidence, identity, and history. Accordingly, it begs the question, so which is which? Is Africa truly the motherland of humanity, or has the world been taught the wrong origin story? In this video, we are diving into the arguments claiming that America, not Africa, is the motherland. Most of the voices you'll hear insist this is the truth. And we'll explore why this idea resonates so strongly, what evidence is used to support it, and where belief may be taking over. Please note that the full credit for the clips belong to their respective creators. Consider supporting them by, checking out their work. Meanwhile, watch with me to the very end, till the point, when I come in with my detailed commentaries with regards to this topic. Thereafter, if you find value in my content, consider supporting the channel by liking, commenting, and most importantly, subscribing. Let's get into it, folks.
We have discovered that Africa is not the motherland of all civilizations. Life began in ancient South America.
Africa is not the real motherland. South America is. Everything you were taught about the origin of civilization is a lie. In Brazil, archaeologists found Luzia, the oldest human remains in the Americas, over 11,500 years old, and her features, not African, not Asian, but Melanesian. That breaks the entire out of Africa theory. Monteverde, Chile? Humans lived there over 18,000 years ago. Thousands of years before Clovis, people even entered North America. This means people were already thriving in South America before the Bering Strait theory was even possible. Let that sink in. Africa and South America were once one land. When they split, people didn't disappear. They just got rebranded. The oldest pyramids, not Egypt. Carol, Peru. Oldest skulls, not Africa. Brazil. Oldest cities, not Mesopotamia. Bolivia. They told you to look across the ocean, so you'd never dig up your own backyard. If this gave you chills, follow, share, and keep digging, because the truth ain't lost, it's just been buried.
You see, Africa is not the motherland. America is. Welcome to the cookout. You see, when you're dealing with a theory, which that was TikTok, this is for entertainment purposes only, you have to come with a hypothesis. So, my hypothesis is, if America was the motherland, it would have to have what? Most of the world's fresh water. As you can see right here, America has the largest share of the world's total fresh water resources. Now let's look at our cousin from across the water. And just understand that this is with nothing but love. I am not here to talk down on anybody. I want to lead with positivity. So if you bring negativity, it will be returned back to you. So, like I was saying, our cousins across the water, they only have 9% of the world's freshwater resources. Which means if Africa was the motherland, we would have been scratching just to find another land. Honestly, not even trying to be funny about it. Which is why I say that we are different people from the Africans. They have their people, we have ours. It's okay for there to be more than one dark race, everybody. It's okay. It's okay. Nobody freak out here. So Africans, just like how we in the Americas had to figure out that the Egyptians weren't the pale people, we are also figuring out over here that neither were the people who built the Americas and the 2,000 plus pyramids here. They were not pale people. They were dark people. So our fight is not with you. So, you know what? I ain't even gonna get into it.
God combo.
So everybody likes to say Africa is the motherland, right? Africa's the motherland. Everyone says that. That's what we've always been taught. Africa's the motherland. But if Africa is the motherland, right, why are of the 640 food crops found in Africa right now, 600 originated in the Americas? 600 of those 640 food crops grown in Africa originated in America. How can Africa be the motherland? You can't feed nobody. America has been feeding Africa. America is the real motherland. This is it. Go look it up for yourself if you don't believe me, man. Skip the small talk, man.
Twin, you think a nigga want to go to Africa, bro? What they be saying, the motherland? No, sir. That is not the motherland. I'm on the motherland right now. Freedom of speech and goddamn free of everything, my nigga. I could go stand outside and get free food from a shelter if I really wanted to. Can you do that in Africa? No, you cannot. You need to stand your broke on this corner with them dirty feet and put your hand out crying, because I see y'all Africans doing that all the time on TikTok. Don't trust them Africans. You African though. No, I'm not, nigga. I'm Jarvis. Hell you talking about? Anyways, bro, carrying on, bro, carrying on. So I would never go to no dirty Africa, boy. Y'all tripping going out there, bro. My mom went to Africa, bro. She got COVID-19. How she get COVID-19 in 2026? That don't even make no sense. That mean that y'all healthcare trash, bro. You don't see niggas around me getting COVID, and if they got COVID, we is healed the next day. Y'all niggas tripping, bro. I would never go to Africa, nigga. Y'all be killing people out there, bro. Them Congo and guerrilla warfare niggas. Y'all niggas be trying to extract all the American money. Yeah, y'all niggas think y'all slick. Nah, nigga, I'm on that, boy. Y'all trying to get our American money. Y'all try to come over here and work in prisons to try to tell Americans what to do. Man, I'm on to y'all. I ain't never going to Africa. That ain't the motherland. This the real motherland, my boy. You a slave from an ancestor and your ass still in Africa, boy. Who really winning?
Black Americans aren't African. We're American. The continent of Africa is not the motherland. America is. America's way older than the continent of Africa. Why do you think America's all through America is built up and Africa's not? Come on now, you guys got to do your math. Stop listening to these colonizers who told you Africa is the motherland and everybody's African. Come on now, stop. They literally are using the Charles Darwinism theory of everybody evolved from Neanderthals, and they were trying to say that black people were the Neanderthals. That's why everybody traces back to Africa, and it's false. It's bullocks. It's bull crap. Right? We know the American lands are way older, way prominent, way more significant than the continent of Africa. I mean, literally, guys, the access to fresh water here is unbelievable. On the continent of Africa, they only have 9% of the world's fresh water. This is why most of them are malnourished, excuse me. It's not because of they're not getting enough help. No, they're getting the most help out of every single continent in the entire world. They are number one when it comes to foreign aid, right? So it's not because they're not getting help. They're literally the biggest charity case in the world, right? The world is donating to the continent of Africa, yet the continent's still not built up. They're still having water problems. They're still having food problems. They're still having electricity problems, right? It's because that land is not the motherland. That land is actually the most malnourished land in all of the world, okay? That's why everybody flocks to America, bro. You notice everybody vacations everywhere in the world except Africa, bro. Nobody says, oh, I'm about to go vacation in Africa. All right, I understand they got the year of repatriation, all of that great stuff, trying to get all of us back to Africa. We're not from Africa. We are the American Indians, the copper-colored Americans, the Americans who Christopher Columbus and the many explorers found when they got here. All right? This is our stuff. This is our land. This is our history. This is our culture. Why do you think the world follows us? Why do you think the world loves our culture? Why do you think the world copies everything we do? Because we are the promised people from the promised land. All right? Period. Welcome to the cookout.
It'd be a lie though, because everything was the Americas, and because it was the Americas, when they started doing all this shifting and artfully using the art, using the craft and all this other stuff, they started changing and making like it was separate lands, and they came from this one, they came from that. That's a lie. All of it was our land. It was only two great nations, which was Asia and it was America. The two great nations. And it was all of the indigenous people in those two areas. They pushed everybody over to this fake ass Africa. They created a country called Africa after this meeting when they started creating shit. Once they created everything in this storyland that they started creating, reconstructing everything, using the spell binding, using that religion, all this stuff started all in the 1600s. The reconstruction of the mind, the reconstruction of the land, twisting people, twisting everything up, putting their bastardized children all over the lands, all these mixed mulatto children with this one and that one, and then they start saying, oh, this is this race from this place, this is this race from that place. That's a lie. We're the only race, and everything else is built off of us, and y'all make a fictitious something of everything so y'all can claim places. Why y'all want to say we don't take care of our kids and we don't this and we don't that? Y'all don't take care of y'all kids. Y'all go from land to land, make y'all children use our indigenous wombs so y'all can land some seed up in there, so y'all can seed something and plant it up in our lands and start taking our land over with y'all kids, and y'all mixed races try to act like this is a new land. And it all was America. It was Asia America, Russia America, everything was America. And they lying about all of it. And they just placed us trying to put us over there. Because this is the other great land. So now we're going to take y'all, move y'all from America, and we're going to put y'all over there in Africa too. Now y'all all in this desolate ass land, and everything that's y'all is ours now. That's what they're doing.
Dear Black Americans, you aren't African. You are not from Africa. Don't let the world trick you. America's the motherland. America's the land your ancestors were in. I keep trying to tell you, even their most significant crops all are indigenous to the Americas. They would have never had these if it wasn't for America. America literally is saving that continent.
Also, let me say this real quick. Africa is not the motherland. America is the motherland. Let me give you an example. How many people you know from America moved to Africa? How many people you know from Africa moved to America? There you go. If Africa was the motherland, why would people be leaving Africa to come over here to the motherland? This is the land of milk and honey. This is the motherland. This is the American dream. Why you think they call it the American? This is the motherland. They told us Africa was the motherland, so we will feel connected to it. Oh, that's our motherland. That's our home. No, you're at home. You've always been at home. This is your America is your home. For all my Black Americans, my Black people, and then actually we're not even Black. Black doesn't have standing in law. That's another story.
When are we going to wake up, beautiful people, and stop pushing the colonizers' lies? You know all they did was go around the earth plundering and pillaging and stealing and raping and unaliving and ruining the indigenous people of the earth and their land. And worst of all, they changed people's identities, their history, and said that they are people that they're not. And some people just refuse to let their false history go. Why? Once you throw away their lies and stop relying on it, their false version of history, you are going to discover that a whole entire world will open up to you full of beautiful history of your ancestors from the past. You'll be surprised at what you will discover. So you can't do that until you get rid of the lies that the colonizers told all of us called history.
So a burger, a steak, some squash, some grapes, some oranges, some apples. You want some cassava? You want some yucca? You want some yams? You want some sweet potatoes? You want some collards? You want some spinach? You want some carrots? You want some beets? What do you want? Shout out to the Earth Speaks. Say, I support this message. I am humbled, brother. I am humbled. In the words of Earth Speaks, smell my finger. All respect, brother. We are now coming together as a people and bringing you ancient knowledge that has been hidden for generations. You see, look at how special this time is. This is a time where we cannot go to our elders for wisdom, but all of the elders and everybody's looking at the youth for wisdom. Because now, this is why in many carvings on the wall, they have corn above their head. And in indigenous Sumerian culture, they were always rolling the corn. Shout out to We Know the Truth. They were rolling the corn because they always had to have an excess of food. Not only food, but for these advanced civilizations, they needed fuel because they were also advanced enough to have vehicles and ways to travel. Some of these ways were more sophisticated than the ways we have today. So the importance of corn also goes into ethanol, which is fuel for the vehicles. Now, with you just agreeing and saying the Sumerians were the oldest civilization, and corn or maize being important to them. Maize is indigenous to the Americas. Africa didn't get maize until the 1400s. So the artifacts, the pyramids, the museums are all taken from the Americas, because the only way you can follow civilization, you have to follow food. Civilization can't survive.
North, Central, and South America is the true motherland.
For 72,000 years. People knew you as Antarctica for 72,000 years. The land of dust and cave dwellers. That's what that was called. Ifri. Africa. Dusty cave dweller land. That's what that means. Ifricon or Africa. Yes. So how was people evolving from an ape to a pyramid builder in Africa when you ain't even have no plants and animals there for nobody to evolve or nothing? You people just make up stuff. They made up Homo sapiens. You say, look, they made up this. Look, for Homo sapiens, look. Africa don't even fit a motherland type of place. It doesn't fit the description. It was never called the land of milk and honey. You see, when you hear that, that means that wherever that place is the motherland. If you hear and you living in Africa and you hearing, oh, the land of milk and honey, my brother. Yes, my brother. Yes, the land of opportunity. If you can just destiny swap with one of the aboriginals, my brother. You have to try your hardest, my brother. Yes. Yes, my...
America is the motherland. Now, I know y'all gonna come for me because we've been taught that Africa is the motherland, but America is the motherland. America is the cradle of all civilization. America is not the new world, it's ancient. America is the first world. America is the land of milk and honey. Now you'll say, prove it. Show me your sources. So I'm going to tell you 3 simple reasons why America is the motherland. But I encourage you to do your own research and use your discernment, and then sit with the information and see if it feels true to you, because the truth always lies within us. So 1 is water. America holds almost 50% of the world's water, while Africa only has 9%. How do you build life without water? The Amazon alone holds more water than all of Africa's rivers combined. An Ogallala aquifer that runs from South Dakota down to Texas holds ancient water for over 10,000 years. So if water is the womb, America is the mother. 2 is food source. America is the cradle of the crops. At the beginning of time, nearly all the food needed to sustain life came from the Americas. Not only were the Mers master architects, but we had ancient civilizations that had advanced agriculture systems. And 3 is Albert Perry. The oldest DNA was found from a man named Albert Perry in South Carolina. The DNA is older than any African timeline. So it is time to reclaim your lost identity and your inheritance.
Exists before slavery, and Africa, especially West African countries, had peaceful trade with South America.
Hi, my name's Chief Yasun, over here in the motherland, America. Thank you for making a video about me. Now I can welcome you to the cookout. Once again, America's older than Africa, even down to your greatest pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Giza, 4,000 years old. Yeah, melanated people over here were building mounds and pyramid-like structures farther than 11,000 years ago. And to be claiming title of the motherland when 600 million people lack access to electricity proves your land is not capable of much, not even giving y'all electricity. You guys literally represent a large portion of the global energy access gap. What's going on with that land? What's going on with the energy there? Now, you guys want to give credit to these Asian hybrids for being Native American when it's literally documented that they came from the Manila port in Asia that was involved in the slave trade, particularly during the Spanish colonial era. Around the same time that they conquered the Mayans in America, my ancestors, by the way. So what they did is they sent their Asian POWs over here to take our land. Check yourself. It's so funny how y'all swear y'all right. Y'all love to say, oh, you're loud and wrong. Really? Because by the average IQ chart, boom, boom. I think y'all are loud and wrong. Try to give all of our hard work, even down to our last names, y'all try to give credit to the same colonizer that y'all love to shame, when clearly even our last names are ours, because they literally mean black, 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 black. Now, I'm so glad you brought me to a broader audience, so now I can really cook. You see, why do you think Africa receives the most foreign aid out of any continent in the world? It's because your land is not capable of growing a large enough amount of food where it feeds all of the people there. Y'all try to say that we the reason that all the crime happens here. Yeah, no, it's not us. It's not. Be careful, your prejudice is showing. Oh man, now let's get back to the land, because you people think I'm talking about y'all when I'm talking about the land. Access to fresh water in Africa is a major challenge. Millions lacking access to clean and safe drinking water. You're lacking electricity. You're lacking clean drinking water. Why do you guys lack clean drinking water? Africa has 9% of the global fresh water percentage. America holds 45%. We are the motherland. That's why. And yeah, try to talk about our IQ, because during the 1870s and 1940s, we had over 50,000 patents in an area referred to as the golden age of innovation in the US. We built this country over here. That's why we don't want y'all tapping in to the diaspora $1.7 trillion African American purse, because it's not yours. And by the way, like I said, all of y'all crops come from the Americas. Cocoa, corn, cassava, cultivated by Native Americans, us. Cassava is only good because your land is dry and it grows good in dry land. Whew, too easy.
So-called modern-day Africa is the motherland. However, there are far more pyramids in the Americas, from the top of America all the way down to the bottom of South America and in between. They're far more numerous and they're larger than the ones in modern-day Africa. The greatest pyramid of them all in the Americas is the one in Mexico. It dwarfs the Giza pyramid, and it's thousands of years older, but modern-day Africa is the motherland, right? Okay, geniuses. They can count the number of pyramids in modern-day Africa, but the ones in America are innumerable. But yet, modern-day Africa is the motherland, and then Sudan has even more pyramids. And the pyramids in Sudan are older than the ones in modern-day Giza, which they call it ancient Egypt. Okay, geniuses. Even the pyramids in the United States are older than the ones in Giza. The people in Egypt, they're not even Africans, so-called Africans. They don't even have an ounce of Egyptian DNA. Weren't the Egyptians supposed to be African? This is the DNA of one of the pharaohs, E1B1A1M2. And this is the DNA of the people in modern day Egypt who do not even have blood that matches the ancient Egyptians. But Africa is the motherland? Okay, geniuses. Then tell me why the so-called African Americans are the one who have the exact same DNA as the actual pharaohs of Egypt, if modern day Africa is the motherland. If you pull out the Bible, you'll see that Noah was instructed to build an ark out of gopher wood. Where was that gopher wood found? The only place in the world where the gopher wood grows naturally is in Florida, and that's in the United States of America, not modern day Africa, geniuses. Huh? That's where the gopher wood was found, not in modern day Africa. Please tell me why there is no gopher wood in modern day Africa, if that is the motherland. There was also an article in the Tampa Tribune in Florida, also admitting that the Garden of Eden is actually in Florida. A secret that the pale folks have kept from us for a long time is you can actually visit the Garden of Eden in Florida, Bristol, Florida to be exact. In fact, the 4 rivers that's spoken of in the book of Genesis are actually found right here in Florida, not modern day Africa. Another question is, if modern day Africa is the motherland, if it's the promised land, if it's the birth of civilization, why did those pale skinned folks come all over here to America? Why didn't these people get on ships and go over there to Africa instead of America? Huh? You have to stop regurgitating the nonsense, false history that these folks gave us. All that nonsense, modern day Africa is the motherland, it came from these people. The people that stole our identity, huh? That gave us so-called African American history and just history all over the world. They're a bunch of frauds. They financed the slave trades. The Christian slave trade and Muslim slave trade, which is why the majority of people who look like me are either Christians or Muslims. And then some of them jumped on the Jewish bandwagon. Wake up. Well, this is an official letter from the Library of Congress, if you can see the seal on the very bottom right. Okay? So this is not something that I just made at home. This is an official document stating that the lost 10 tribes of Israel are where? In the United States. Okay, so if we were kidnapped from so-called motherland of Africa, why are the majority of the so-called Israelites in America? Huh, geniuses? Why? Wouldn't the majority of the people still be in the place that they were kidnapped from? I don't know, but you guys are the geniuses. I took a look at your content, dear, and you're still on that Africa is the motherland tip. You're in preschool, babes. I'm on a PhD level. Let's get it. I have geological scientific evidence. The Americas is by far the oldest continent of them all. The folks that gave us what is known as history, they know the truth, right? Of course they do. Have you ever wondered why they consider modern day Africa the oldest continent, the motherland? This is why. It's because after the discovery by Columbus in the latter part of the 15th century, it was customary to speak of the Eastern Hemisphere, which is where modern day Africa is, as the Old World, and the Western as the New, because they didn't know anything about the Western world yet. That's why. That's the only reason why they say that modern day Africa is the motherland, because they knew about it first. No one seemed to care how long the Western Hemisphere may have existed before the discovery, so they considered it to be new only for that reason. Take a screenshot if you like. There was geological evidence that had been gathered, and they guesstimated that North American continent had existed between 100 and 400 million years since it was prepared for life. Their geological evidence confirmed that America is by far the oldest. They took a look at the rock formations and they drew their conclusions from there. Not only have they studied the rocks, but also science has also gathered facts from the bones and works of man in the caverns, hidden places in the earth, and they drew their conclusions from what they found in comparison to what is on the modern day continent of Africa. It has recently been contended by some of the most eminent of geologists that North America was the first of the continents. See? The earliest sedimentary rocks was found in the Laurentian Mountains, and as no older rocks have been found anywhere else. America was pronounced the firstborn of the continents. Take a look down further. It says America, so far as her physical history is concerned, has been falsely denominated the New World. For those of you fighting me in the comments section, talking about, oh, America has only been around for 400 years. You a 400-year lie. Clearly, it's older. This is just when the Caucasoids discovered it. So that's the time that they're counting from to say that, hey, it's the New World. But obviously, I just proved to you that it's not.
The subject at hand is the Americas is really the motherland. Yes, unequivocally, without a shadow of doubt, the Americas, I'm not talking about United States only, I'm talking about North, Central, South, and all the 7,000 islands combined, including Hawaii. Hawaii? Yes, Hawaii. So, yes, scientists are proving it now. You know, I know that they like to create this narrative, this false narrative that we have become accustomed to, that is Africa. Africa is the youngest continent besides Europe. Besides Europe, Africa is the second youngest continent. The Americas, not only the Americas control everything, because we're in the center of the earth. We are the center of the universe. Okay? That's number one. On a spiritual level, on a social level, on an economical level, on an agricultural level, we control everything. Everything gravitates towards us. You know, everything gravitates towards us. So that's what I'm saying, because all I'm saying is that we have been stooped, we have been bamboozled, we have been lied to, primarily by our religious leaders. I don't care if they are rabbi, pastors, imam, priests, the same shit, different toilet. Same thing with your politicians. They all have lied to us, our historians have lied to us, so on and so forth. Now, when I say the Americas is truly the motherland, I get a lot of flack for that. Not only me, other pundits get a lot of flack for that, because we program our mind to think that, we shape our mind the way we think, to really think that Africa is the motherland. I used to be in that boat too, so I granted, I understand the sentiment. I used to think like that because I didn't do no research back then. I was young and naive. My naivete led me to know that it was Africa, but for a long time I thought it was Africa. But the more research I've done, the more I've researched and I've learned over the decades, and I can feel it in my spirit, in my soul, that the America is the motherland, because everybody's coming here. Everybody want to come to America, because America, the America is the land of milk, of honey, and also the bread basket of the world. Those two terms are synonymous with the Americas, whether you like it or not. That is the truth. The truth is undeniable, just like the sun, just like the air you breathe, just like the water. It's undeniable, it's everywhere. So what I'm saying to you, that what I'm trying to make you comprehend, that I know the aristocrats have given us this false narrative out of Africa theory. I say a theory is an educational guess. It's not truth, it's fiction. So you must understand, and you must understand what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to convey to you on this video. The Americas is truly the old world and truly the motherland. The motherland, because genetically speaking, socially speaking, economically speaking, geography speaking, the Americas. Now the Amazon forest, like I say, is twice the size of the United States. The Amazon forest, go look it up. Don't say I'm just a messenger. Control the whole earth weather. If you didn't know that, now you know. This is why I keep telling you guys, Africa, most Africa is deserted. Is half of Africa, I'll say 50% of Africa is all desert. You have the Sahara Desert, you have a desert in Congo, you have a desert in other countries in South Africa. You have a lot of desert in Africa. So the Americas is a real fertile land. It's fertile all around. It's a fertile land. Even though those Europeans, they have tried to destroy this ecosystem, but the Creator always renew it every now and then. The Creator always renewing this land, because He knows that this is the motherland. Okay, this is the motherland, and This land have tremendous power, have tremendous resources that can feed the whole planet, okay? We have enough resources to feed the whole planet, okay? We are the only continent, North, Central, and South America, that can feed the whole continent. Asia cannot do that. Africa cannot do that. Europe definitely cannot do that. They cannot feed the whole world. But we in the Americas can. We've been feeding the world for centuries now, unbeknownst to a lot of pundits, unbeknownst to a lot of people. We have been feeding the world for centuries now. We have been feeding the world for thousands of years. Corn comes from here. All your fruits and vegetables, they originate from here. Your bananas, your papaya, your mangoes, your peaches, your watermelon, okay, your cacao, your coffee, they all come from here, contrary to popular belief. 400 out of 600 seed came from the Americas. 400 seed out of 600. Ask your farmer, 400 seed out of 600 seed came from the Americas. This is why I keep telling you, you pendejos, you estúpidos, that you oxymoron, the Americas is truly the motherland on a spiritual level. It is. North America is Israel. North America is Egypt. I get it. A lot of us didn't know that when we were growing up. We have learned, we have come to this knowledge. And you see other people are making videos, documentary about what I'm stating here on this video, that the America is truly the whole world, truly the motherland, not Africa, not Asia, definitely not Europe. So I know they have tell our history in reverse. They didn't bring no 6 million or 10 million slaves from Africa here. It's impossible, it's not feasible economically, physically it's not feasible. Like I told, the ocean have gyres. The gyres, they're like the cycle of the ocean. They do not intersect. Ask any captain of the ship, ask your friend out in the Navy. They will tell you that the ocean do not intersect. They create a divide everything. He divide the oceans. The Pacific and the Atlantic, they do not intersect. There's videos on that, on TikTok, on YouTube. There's video that show you that they do not intersect. So you telling me that they're gonna bring a group of Africans from West Africa and bring them here? Now with Brazil, like I said in my earlier video, there were 2 to 5% people that came here. There were 2 or 5% people that came here from Africa, mostly from Angola. Angola, that's not all Africa. That's one country. So there was about 2% of an Angolan, you might say 5% of an Angolan that came to Brazil. But the majority, the lion's share of those so-called blacks, Afro-Latinos, Afro-Brazilian, they are the indigenous American. I know some of them, they have been brainwashed to our school system, to our religion, to tell them that they're from Africa. That's a false narrative. A lot of them have been lied to, just like us in the North Central America, the Caribbean islands. They keep professing this caca, this bull caca, this bullshit to us that we came from Africa. Ask Africa, is there a proverb in Africa that told you that your people were sold? Did your grandfather, your grandmother tell you that this story that your people were stolen from Africa as a child? Most Africans will tell you no. They never heard that story until they got here in the United States or the Caribbean island. That's when they started hearing this story. They didn't hear that stuff in Africa. The slave trade that they don't talk about is the sub-Sahara. The sub-Sahara, where African kings and queens were selling African to the Arabs, and consequently the Arabs then was selling African to European. That's the slave trade they keep under wraps. Go look it up, the sub-Sahara slave trade. That's when they sell millions and millions of African. But it wasn't us. They were shipping us out of here. They were shipping us to Seville, Spain, Portugal. They were shipping us to Cape Cavera, right? Owned by the Portuguese. They were shipping us over there. They were shipping us to other countries, right? So primarily, most of us didn't go to Africa, okay? The true African is the so-called white, so-called Caucasian. They are the true African, okay? African is not synonymous with Africa. Africa, that's not the original name. The original name was Ethiopia, the Ethiopian continent, okay? That was the original name. But there's another name for it. I forget the name, but you can go research it yourself. And Africa was not populated like people think it was. The Americas was very popular. We had hundreds of millions of people living here. Okay? Africa was not populated like that in the 1900s.
Perry's lineage was not here as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. It's impossible. All right? It's impossible. Now, regardless of how mad you get, when the AOO lineage was found here, geneticists announced it's the oldest genes on the planet. Then they went to Cameroon and they found AO aspects that did not have the. Well, let me slow myself down. I don't want to give away all my Jews, but I'm about to give away this one because this is online. All right. So we have something in genetics called the most recent common ancestor, right? And so that means that if you find two people, we can follow your genetics to the common ancestor that your haplogroups and matrilineal and patrilineal would have. We can trace it. When we start looking for Perry's Y chromosome, I'm about to show you who Perry is for those of you who don't know. We start looking for his most recent common ancestor. If he was here as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, we could trace that lineage back and date the timing system back to probably within a 600 to 400 year period. Let's say that because it's 2000 something now, right? If we trace in the lineages back, because that line is still producing sons. But if we were to trace that back, we could trace it back to a time where they had a common progenitor if he was from Cameroon during the slave trade. All right? And so check this out. Let's go to the actual studies produced by geneticists to see when Perry's Y chromosome had a most recent common ancestor to somebody from Africa. And when we look at the date, the timing system is going to knock all of these people who've been commenting on this out of the box. All right? And this is not to denigrate or separate any of the world's Aboriginal people. It is to clarify proper reconstruction of history. We killed the argument that Africans and Americans weren't going back across the Atlantic last week. You could go all the way back to Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's work and look at his work in talking about the cotton and the jack bean and the bottle gourd and all of that. It would be impossible for those things to float across oceans and do the things that they were doing. So that argument about whether we moved across the Atlantic in pre-Columbian times is dead. It's a dead argument. Only dummies make the argument that nobody was moving back and forth prior to we're here as a result of the slave trade and we're Africans. Like, that's a dead argument. First of all, we never called ourselves African. White people called us that. So now you're something that invader called you. You see what I'm saying? Like, let's stop that. Now let's go to the actual study. An African-American paternal lineage as an extremely ancient root to the human Y chromosome phylogenetic tree. Not Ali, we report the discovery of an African-American Y chromosome that carries the ancestral state of all SNPs that define the basal portion of the Y chromosome phylogenetic tree. We sequenced 240 kilobytes of this chromosome to identify private derived mutations on this lineage, which we named AOO. All right, I'm not going to read all this section because this gives more about short tandem repeats on the Y chromosome and the differences amongst the group that we're discussing, the AOO. But look, using the joint likelihood for the split of the two lineages and a sublineage internal to one of them, we estimated that the most recent common ancestor of the African American and the Cameroonian AO chromosomes lived between 2.6 and 73,000 years ago. Stop. Stop. Now, why that time period? Why the split during that time period? I didn't say it. Who 2,000 years ago would have split from the Cameroonian lineage if they were in Cameroon and developed this particular lineage? Or all the way back to 70,000. You know how much time that is, bro? That's 71,000 years. That's not 500 years ago, bro. That's not 400 years ago. That's not 300 years ago in the slave trade. The Perry family's chromosome is split from the Cameroonian chromosome thousands of years ago. Likelihood estimate, 17,000 years ago. 17,000 years ago. Can you read that? Can you read that? Can you read it? All right, so look. Check this out. We as a people need institutions so that we can explain things properly. Science will not back your ideological beliefs. So if they're estimating that the lineage is split 17,000 years ago, right, why are they reporting 500 years? Why are they saying, oh, well, Perry's family had to come here from Cameroon during the slave trade? Okay. That's not what these geneticists are saying. So you have to explain. Matter of fact, you don't have to explain nothing. We don't want y'all to explain nothing. We just want y'all to be quiet.
Greetings, fam, and welcome to part 2 of how the hell did we end up in modern day Africa, and also how we were conquered as a people. Modern day Africa is the home of the Africans who carry the E1B1B DNA haplogroup. I am not only going to prove to you that not all so-called black people are the exact same people, we are different people, and also to prove to you that the slave trade was totally reversed and we were dumped in modern day Africa. Out the gate, it clearly states that the haplogroup E1B1B belongs to the Africans, also people in the Middle East, so-called Middle East, which is really still Africa, and people in Europe as well. What does this say? It is not a major haplogroup in the Americas. Read it again. E1B1B, which is the African DNA, is not a major haplogroup in the Americas. I can finish the video right here, but I'm going to go further. Let's take a look at this map where it basically shows the concentration of the E1B1A and E1B1B haplogroups and where these people reside in modern day Africa. In the map at the top, you can clearly see that E1B1B is mostly concentrated like in heavy numbers, in large numbers, in the Horn of Africa, and also in East Africa as well. However, the E1B1B haplogroup is actually spread out throughout the entire continent of Africa. E1B1A, which is the DNA from the Americas, is actually concentrated and scattered all throughout Africa. You see these two arrows? Which countries is it pointing to? What are they trying to tell us? Basically, they're trying to tell us that the greatest concentration of people with the E1B1A haplogroup reside in about like 2 to 3 of the countries in modern day Africa. I'm about to show you those countries right now. But first, I would like to show you how a lot of the countries in West Africa, there's a mixture of E1B1A and E1B1B. Nigeria is first on the list. As you can clearly see, it states here that there is a large dominant number of E1B1A people in Nigeria. However, they're sprinkled around, and it's showing you, it's breaking it down by their different groups. The Igbos, the Hausa, the Yoruba, and the Fulanis is showing you that Igbos, they have the most E1B1A haplogroup. Again, that's the same DNA of those of us in the Americas. The Hausa, it shows you theirs. There's like a couple of people that are Hausa that are in there. The Yorubas, I don't see any of our DNA in them. And then the Fulanis, it shows you their haplogroup type as well. So let's take a look at those in Ghana. As you can clearly see, there is a sprinkling of both E1B1A and E1B1B. So there are Hamites and Shemites in Ghana. Also, we have the DRC. There is a super large concentration of people in the DRC with E1B1A, but there are also people with E1B1B. It says also haplogroup A, and a couple of other different the DNA types that are sprinkled around in there as well. And last but not least, we have Guinea-Bissau. And there is a large concentration, just like in DRC, of people that have the E1B1A haplogroup type. And there are other ones as well that are mixed in there. So which countries have the largest amount of E1B1A DNA? That would be Sierra Leone, Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and also Liberia, which takes the #1 spot. Why is that? Let's talk about it. As I've stated before in many videos, we were taken from the Americas and dumped in Africa, literally. I'll show you why. The reason why people in Liberia, Angola, Sierra Leone, and DRC have such a large concentration of people with E1B1A haplogroup is because there was a society called the American Colonization Society. And in order to deal with their NEGRO problem in America, they decided that they were going to ship us over to modern day Africa to get rid of us. And that's exactly what they did. Throughout the years, they've done many things to get rid of their NEGRO problem, such as the Planned Parenthood places, you know, to yank us out of to terminate our pregnancies. Thank you, Marcus Hanger. Basically, after slavery ended, there were just so many of us in the Americas, and they didn't want to be around us. They didn't want to deal with us. They didn't want to see us. And so in order to get rid of us, we were shipped over to modern day Africa. I mean, is this flag not a dead giveaway? I mean, this is pretty much the American flag. Yes. So basically the Liberians, Sierra Leoneans, and, you know, all the other ones that have super large concentrations of E1B1A DNA haplogroup, those are our people. They're from America. Why do you say they're from America? Well, clearly, E1B1A haplogroup is actually the home to North and South America. As you can clearly see, the DNA is from the top of America all the way down to the bottom of South America, E1B1A. And then we also have the A and the L scattered throughout. That's also the DNA of Pharaoh Ramsey. So-called African Americans. This is our DNA. This is the home of us over here. And as I showed you on the other map, it's scattered throughout Africa. It's in pockets here and pockets there. But over in America, it's fully from the top all the way down to the bottom. So what does that tell you? It should tell you that we actually came from America. We came from the Americas. Because in another video, I showed you how the Haitians and Jamaicans have the largest percentage of E1B1A in all the people in the Caribbean and South America. I found this article to be quite interesting. Why? Because You know, their version of history is that we were brought from modern day Africa over and dumped into America, which it didn't happen though. It was the complete opposite. So they're telling us, well, so-called Black Americans, you know, if you want to find your relatives, why don't you go to Angola? You're looking in what does it say, in Ghana and other parts of West Africa, but you forgot all about Angola. Does that make sense to y'all? Why would we look over there? Shouldn't we be looking in America? You see, they're telling on themselves. They're basically letting you know, hey, look, we dumped them in Angola too. Why don't you come over and take a look in Angola? Because, yeah, we dumped them over there too, not just in Ghana and Nigeria. Hello? Read between the lines. And so here is the article basically saying that a lot of them were brought into the slave market of Monsango village, and they were sold into bondage there. It was called a point of no return, just like the other castles. And yeah, large numbers of our people are in Angola as well. And from there was a Bantu expansion, and people spread out from there. And then there's also people in East Africa as well that have the E1B1A haplogroup. Who might those people be? None other than the Kikuyu in Kenya. They're the ones that are said to have the Ark of the Covenant. Okay? So they're scattered all throughout Africa. But as you can clearly see, as I showed you, they're from the top of America all the way down to the bottom. That should tell you that this is where y'all came from. Y'all came from America and you were dumped in modern day Africa. Like, share, follow, comment, and follow me on YouTube. Brutally Honest History Lover.
America is the motherland, not Africa. If Africa is the cradle of civilization, then they still ask the question, who is the mother? The mother is the Americas, the originator that gave birth to the cradle. What is a cradle without population, without people, without a baby? An empty cradle. The mother has always been the Americas. And the evidence has been in plain sight, in front of you, your entire life. Your entire life. If you'd like to see evidence of it, I'm prepared to show you. In modeling called ATRs or whatever, stop using that terminology, please. That is our culture, not Africans. There is a deity known as Mama Wata. Okay? This is a deity that is known for her big, beautiful hair, mermaid legs, carrying a snake. This is a depiction of her. Mermaid hair. This is another depiction of her. Hair. Mermaid. Here's another with the snake, the hair, and the fins for the mermaid tail. And yet another. This is Mama Wata, not Mommy Water. Another depiction. But let's see where she is now and where she's always been. This is the Americas. In the center of the Americas, you have this big body of water. Interestingly shaped. Here's another. Interestingly shaped. Interesting. And if you open up your Google map right now, zoom out, you will see that is Mama Wata. there in plain sight the whole damn time. Her head, her big beautiful hair, shoulder, arm, knees, and even her tail. America's is the motherland. This is your mother. The cradle's over there. That's what she's watching. Go back and look at any map that you could possibly think of. She's always been there the entire time. So, as for your spirituality, she's right there. Not in Africa. And there's some debate about this, but is that her snake?
Peace, y'all. I'm back. Now, for centuries, people have believed that Africa is the cradle of civilization, yet historical, botanical, and archaeological evidence, baby, challenges this narrative. And not to mention, look at what it looks like over there compared to over here. Let's say that. And I'm not trying to be funny, but it's facts. And this is why everybody wants to hop on over here, because America has always had advanced civilization. Okay. Now let's break a couple things down. Now, when you start to even consider the fact that while much of mainstream history credits ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Asia as the most developed early civilizations, the Americas, it tells a whole different story, especially when you get to thinking about the Olmecs, the Mayans, the Incas, and the Mississippians, how they constructed these massive pyramids, had these complex irrigation systems, and a vast trade network long before European colonization. Let's talk about Cahokia, which is Illinois, was home to a sophisticated city of over 40,000 people, featuring a pyramid larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, proving America's pre-Columbian urban sophistication. The Serpent Mound in Ohio and the pyramidal structures in Teotihuacan, Mexico, show this mathematical precision and celestial alignment comparable to those in now Egypt. And the source of that, for Mr. Man that wanted sources, since he said I just be talking. Okay. Go ahead and check out Charles C. Mann, 1491, New Revelations of the Americas before Columbus. Another thing, America was the agricultural powerhouse, baby, of the ancient world. Did you know the world's most essential crops originated here in the Americas? Did y'all know that? That indigenous American civilizations were among the first agricultural innovators. Y'all know that corn that everybody like to eat, feed deers and stuff? Corn, also known as maize, is one of the world's most important staple foods. And guess what? It was first cultivated in Mesoamerica, then introduced to Africa post-Columbian contact. And also, did you know potatoes, tomatoes, peanuts, beans, squash, and peppers, which, all of these are crucial to global diets all around the world today. But guess where they trace back to? Here, the Americas. That good old amaranth and quinoa, that high protein superfoods, were cultivated in where? The Americas, thousands of years ago, long before their use spread globally. Now, the source for that, Mr. Man, Michael Blake, Maize for the Gods, unearthing the 9,000-year history of corn. Let's talk about America's influence on Africa, though, because the agricultural exchange tells a story that suggests that the Americas influenced Africa way before European intervention. And did you know that Egyptian depictions of maize, corn, suggests the possibility of transatlantic contact before Columbus. West Africa's adoption of maize, cassava, and peanuts occurred after early interactions with the Americas, hinting at a deeper relationship between these regions. Think about it. The source of that is Barry Fell's America, BC, Ancient Settlers in the New World. More evidence of early contact between America and Africa. The archaeological and genetic findings suggest a direct link between ancient American civilizations and early African cultures. The Olmec civilization, 1500 BCE. Remember how they carved these massive stone heads with distinct indigenous and Afro-featured depictions? Challenging the traditional migration theories. And did y'all know also Egyptian mummies contain nicotine and cocaine, which are only native to where? The Americas. Again, this is proving pre-Columbian contact. I want y'all to think about that, okay? Yeah, think about that. Now, I want to talk about the maps. Y'all know the maps were altered, right? Okay. One of the strongest pieces of evidence supporting the idea that America is the true old world is how maps were changed throughout history. Pre-15th century maps label parts of the Americas as India, Ethiopia, honey girl, and the land of the Indies. The Piri Rice, and that's Pirireis map of 1513, and also the Walsey Mueller map of 1507, and Mercator's maps. They all show prior knowledge of the Americas. The European discovery of the New World conveniently renamed continents and erased America's ancient history. Our story. Ancient cartographers placed the prime meridian in the Americas, not in Europe. And again, this is indicating that it was once considered the center of the world. Now, the source for that, sugars, is Leo Weiner, Africa and the Discovery of America. Now, y'all know on that video, I did quote the land of milk and honey and America's biblical connection. While, references to America in ancient texts they're always dismissed. And it's like certain key passages align with descriptions of this land, not Africa, the land of milk and honey. Many associate this biblical phrase with the Middle East, but when European settlers arrived in America, they described it in identical terms: fertile, abundant, and unlike anything in Europe. Second Esdras 1340-45 in the Apocrypha speaks of lost tribes of Israel traveling to a distant, uninhabited land, often interpreted as a reference to the Americas. Plato's writings on Atlantis describe a vast technological advanced land beyond the pillars of Hercules. Many now link this to the Americas. The source, J.A. Rogers, Sex and Race, Volume 1. The esoteric and Masonic view of America as the true world. Let's talk about that thing. Because secret societies and ancient traditions have long suggested that America is far older than commonly taught. The Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and Moorish scholars viewed America as the true old world, a land of advanced wisdom and ancient knowledge. The Moors and early navigators referenced the Americas in pre-Columbian text, calling it Al-Maroc, from which Morocco gets its name. Maps were switched, remember? So many of the United States founding fathers were Freemasons, right? Who understood and incorporated esoteric knowledge, not the exoteric, esoteric knowledge of America's ancient status. And you can find this in Manly P. Hall's The Secret Destiny of America. So, question for you. Who really built the first great civilizations, people? The idea that America is the new world is just a Eurocentric revisionist concept that was designed to erase indigenous history and African contributions. The truth, America is the ancient land with a rich, advanced history predating colonial narratives. It's time to reclaim our real story.
That Africa's not our beginnings because we had many great civilizations before Africa. Now, y'all heard of the Great Flood, right?
We have various different civilizations before Africa. As a matter of fact, when our greatest, oldest civilizations were thriving, Africa's most greatest civilization hadn't even been created yet. So what I'm saying is Africa is only as known for its greatness because of a post-cataclysmic event. Africa became the place where we resettled. Not the place where we originally settled, but it's the place where we resettled to gain our science and our wits after this cataclysm. And we, as Americans or people in the Western Hemisphere, was not the only people that was affected by this particular cataclysm. We can get into this. People call it the Atlantis story, the Moon story. Some people even in science call it the Younger Dryas. So we can get into all those particular
things because we had many great civilizations before Africa. Now, y'all heard of the Great Flood, right? The Great Deluge. Well, who the hell was around before the Great Flood? Huh? It was civilizations around before the Great Flood. So nobody never talks about these civilizations. Okay? So what I'm telling you is there was a civilization out in the Pacific, right? Called Miriam, Mother Moon. I'm sure people in your chat know what movie is. Mother Moon out in the Pacific that sank into the waters. Now, a lot of people want to say, oh, that's myth, that's myth. No, it's a lot of history to this. Read the Mahabharata. Have you done research in the Indus Valley civilization? Read the Mahabharata in the behind the beaches. They talk about Mother Moon and how all of these people had to leave and inhabit other lands when Mother Moon sank into the ocean. Our people came from Mu into America. We inhabited the coastlines of the Pacific, the western coastlines of the Pacific.
Maybe his tribe do come from Mu, but we got to be very clear when we're giving this breakdown of Mu in comparison to them coming to America, which in historical sense is Atlantis. So we have that in retrospect. We know that the people of Mu were sheltered and welcomed in by the people of America and Atlantis, and we naturally blend and amalgamated. So if that's what you want to go, you got to go. But you're not going to say that we are the people of Mu and there was no people here in America while Mu was thriving. Okay, we have to make that clear.
We inhabited America. So let me ask y'all something. Have y'all ever heard America be called the old world? Have y'all ever heard all of these people had to leave and inhabit other lands when Mother Moon sank into the ocean? Our people came from Mu into America. We inhabited the coastlines of the Pacific, the western coastlines of the Pacific. We inhabited America. So let me ask y'all something. Have y'all ever heard America be called the old world? Have y'all ever heard somebody say?
Has any of you ever realized that Africa is the only continent referred to as Mother, or like Mother Africa or Motherland? Like, you can't say Mother United States of America or Mother Asia or Mother Europe, Mother Africa. Yeah, that sounds right, because I feel like of all the continents, Mother is, Africa is the continent that best shows you what a mother is. This is the continent with the most resources. This is the continent with the resources in their rawest form. This is the continent in which resources are used and abused. This is the continent where everything starts. This is the continent that births out. This is the continent in which people take. That's a mother. That's you as a mother. You raise, you nurture, people take. And yet tomorrow you wake up again to give more. I'm so happy to be a mother in Mother Africa, because then there's a lot for me to learn. The experiences of Africa, the experiences that I have as a mother, and that the things that are going wrong with Africa are the things that happen to mothers. So if we're going to take care of our continent, our motherland, Mother Africa, let's take care of mothers.
So let's talk about the motherland and the promised land. This is all a theory, and this is all something that I feel spiritually. This isn't something that I can completely back up scientifically. This is what I feel as a two-spirit person who is Afro-Indigenous, whose partner is also Afro-Indigenous, and that's it. I feel that it is most likely possible that at one point in time, perhaps at the beginning of time, Africa and America would have been together. Before they broke apart, they were together, and therefore the indigenous people of America and the indigenous people of Africa would have been neighboring tribes. In that instance, we would have been neighboring tribes. Now, I believe that these two pieces of earth separated long over time. Now, what we have to respect and understand is the fact that these two pieces of earth are very much separate now. They may have been together at one point, but they're separate now. I believe the science behind the Eve gene, which essentially says that we all came from one woman in Africa who had a magical superpower gene that could create any human being that looks any type of way, any hair texture, any skin color. And I believe that this is where we started. This is where our tribe started. And we spread around the world. That's what I believe. I feel that the promised land is America. Now, there's some debate going around. Is America the motherland, or is Africa the motherland? Where did life start? So this is what I'm saying. I believe we were neighboring tribes. I also believe that Africa is the motherland. And I also believe that America is the promised land. So I hope that makes sense, and that doesn't mean that everyone needs to come to America to get freedom. But I do believe that in a lot of instances we are leading the world. And that's not to say that there's not corruption, because there is. We already see how the American government treats the indigenous people, okay? But it's also important to note that the government, the US government and the federal government, is not owned by the indigenous people. It's just another colonized system.
Welcome to this last section, folks. This is the part where, we slow things down, and actually examine the claim behind the noise. You've heard from the clips the growing argument that, challenges everything. Many people are, they thought that was settled. Not just that Africa is the motherland of humanity, but this idea itself may be incomplete or misleading in the first place. The counter-argument goes further, it suggests that America wasn't the new world at all, but the older one. That advanced civilizations existed in the Americas long before, European contact, and that this history has been minimized or completely ignored. So the question here isn't about, disrespecting Africa. It's about understanding why these claims do exist, why they resonate with some people, and where the evidence ends and belief begins. According to this view, Africa being called the motherland is not based on truth, folks, but on repetition. They say that a story told a couple of times is accepted as fact. The argument insists that history has been reversed, and that what we call the old world is actually younger, and what we now call the new world is ancient. Supporters of this idea, they argue that America shows the real signs of primacy, there's abundance, there's stability and continuity. They claim that the land itself tells a story that contradicts mainstream history, folks. That the Americas were not discovered in 1492, but it was reclaimed. That long before Europeans arrived, the land was already, populated by people whose origins are now being renamed, being reclassified and reassigned. In this framework, Africa is not denied history, but is denied of the primacy. The claim is not that Africa contributed nothing, but that it was never the starting point. That calling Africa the motherland serves a narrative that disconnects people from where they are truly rooted. And central to this idea is the argument that, nature never lies, that the land itself holds memory. Which brings us to the most, repeated pieces of evidence in this context used to support this claim: water. And the belief that, where life began, there must have been, overwhelming abundance of it. So another major argument, used to support the idea that America is the true motherland centers on freshwater resources. The claim is that, Africa holds only a small fraction of, the world's freshwater resources, often cited to be around 9%, while the Americas together, they hold about, 45% of the world's freshwater resources. So from this perspective, guys, water is not just a resource, it's a record. The argument is that, where life must have first begun, there should be, water in abundance, it should be stable, and, it should be continuously present. So if Africa were truly the birthplace of humanity, the question becomes, why does it hold, such a comparatively small proportion of the planet's freshwater resource? Supporters of this view argue that continents don't lose water randomly, They believe water patterns reflect deep, geological history, age, stability, and original design. In this logic, folks, the Americas' vast freshwater systems are interpreted as a signs of an older, more established landmass, capable of sustaining early human life on a massive scale, folks. This argument is often framed as common sense rather than science. Life needs water, civilization needs water. So wherever humanity began must logically be where the water is, more plentiful. To them, Africa's modern water scarcity is not just a development issue. It's presented as historical evidence that, Africa could not have been the starting point. But this line of reasoning raises a deeper question, folks. Does the current distribution of fresh water actually tell us where humanity began? Or does it tell us something else entirely about, climate, geography, and time? And to answer that, the conversation inevitably shifts from water to food, and to the claim that even what Africa eats today points backward, not inward, but westward across the Atlantic, folks. So this argument, is on food, specifically where the food that sustains Africa, actually comes from. The claim is that, many of the staple crops commonly eaten across Africa did not originate from there at all, but instead they're from the, the Americas. The list of crops is endless. In the video, somebody said that, there are about 600 varieties. We have maize, cassava, tomatoes, and even some varieties of beans, they're pointed as evidence. From this viewpoint, food origin, is treated as cultural and historical proof. The logic goes like this. If Africa were truly the motherland of civilization, then its foundational foods should also be, indigenous and globally exported outward, folks. Instead, critics argue that, Africa adopted crops from elsewhere, suggesting dependence rather than origin. This argument, it reframes agriculture as a marker of primacy. It suggests that the land where humanity began should also be the land that first, domesticated the crops that later fed the whole world. So when African diets are, shown to rely heavily on crops that originated from the Americas, it is presented as a further evidence that Africa could not have been, the starting point of human civilization. Again, supporters of this claim, they often dismiss, counterpoints about stuff like migration, about stuff like trade, or historical, crop exchange. To them, the conclusion is simple. If Africa truly came first, why does much of what feeds it, traces back to another continent? But this raises an important distinction that often gets blurred in these debates, folks. The difference between where the crops originated and where the people, they did originate. And that distinction becomes even more contested when modern development is brought into the conversation, especially the idea that, true civilization should show uninterrupted progress. At this point, the argument often shifts, from ancient history to modern conditions. The question becomes less about fossils and more about, visible outcomes. If Africa is truly the motherland of, all civilization, then why, many ask, does it, appear to be so far behind today? This line of reasoning, folks, equates civilization, with infrastructure, electricity, stuff like technology, industrial capacity, and global influence. The assumption is that a land that where humanity began should have remained at the forefront of human progress, continuous leadership, continuous dominance, and continuous development. So when Africa is compared to modern, developed Americas or Europe, the contrast is used as proof. Limited electricity access, weak infrastructure, and global economic struggles are presented not as a result of history, but as evidence of historical absence. The argument implies that, true origins do not fall behind, they lead. From this perspective, Africa's present condition is used to invalidate its past. The idea of colonization, resource extraction, or systemic disruption is often minimized or completely ignored. Instead, development is treated as a straight line, and that whoever is ahead today must have always been ahead. But this kind of thinking, folks, raises critical questions. Does modern power automatically reflect ancient origin? Or are we confusing, who currently controls systems with who originally, started them? And that question pushes the debate into even more personal territory, away from the land and resources and toward blood, ancestry, and identity itself. So that's why I come to the end of this, folks. Although there's still much more to talk about with regards to this, concerning stuff like DNA and a lot of more other stuff to, consider in this debate. But I don't want to exhaust everything, and I don't want to really make this video so long. So I want to leave it open for everyone, who wishes to weigh in this discussion to do so in the comment section below. Kindly consider, dropping your opinions, your thoughts, and your beliefs in this, controversial subject matter. And one last thing, if at all you found value in the content that I bring unto you, I implore you to, consider supporting the channel, by subscribing, liking, and commenting. I'll see you guys in my next feature.